So let us start for the today. We are covering chapter 9 of the NISM material plus SEBI regulations issued to disclose the various disclosure obligations on the social enterprises. This has the exam weightage of 10 marks. This SEBI circular on SSC framework is issued on 15 September 2022 by the SEBI. So this is the MCQ can come on which date the SEBI circular has come, whether this circular has come after the amendment in the regulations or before the amendment in the regulations. So this is the first MCQ or two MCQ can be framed out of the first circle only. The SEBI has amended 3 regulations to build up the framework on the social stock exchange. SEBI ICDR regulations 2018 has been amended. SEBI LODR regulations 2015 has been amended, and SEBI alternate investment fund regulations 2012 has been amended on 25th July 2022. So how many amendments or how many regulations have been amended by the SEBI? That is another questions may come out, right? Which of the following has been amended by the SEBI in the MCQ? That can come out. So these 3 regulations we have to know that these are amended on 25th July 2022, and SEBI circular on framework has come on 15th September 2022. Now, what are the regulations? In ICDR regulations, they have inserted chapter 10A. In LODR regulations, they have inserted chapter 9A. And AIF regulations, they have made the amendment in between the regulations. No separate chapter has been there. They have added the definitions and social impact fund eligibility in the AIF regulations. So when you read the AIF regulations, just go through the amendment at the bottom. They have made 9-10 amendments in the AIF regulations, and that is relevant for your exam also. When you are going for the social impact fund. So coming back to the disclosure requirements, so regulation 292K1 deal with the disclosure requirements under the ICDR regulations. 91B, C, D, E required in the SEBI LODR regulations. So these are the 2 regulations which talk about the disclosure requirement by the social enterprises. Giving the overview of the social enterprises, first of all, objective of the social enterprises should be primacy of the social intent. So currently, United Nations has given 17 social development goals, 17. So these are the basic. I'm just repeating, might be you are all aware of, but I am just touching the base of the previous chapters. So primacy should be social intent. This can be an important MCQ of the objective of the social enterprises. There are 17 SDG as per the United Nations or OECD guidelines, 16 SDG as per the Niti Aayog document. The question or MCQ is asking about the United Nations. There are 17 SDG, and in case the Niti Aayog document, there are 16 SDG. 17th is any other as specified they have given. So there are 17 points, but SDGs are 16 defined as of now. There can be 2 types of social enterprises. One is the NPO and is the for the profit enterprises. NPOs are not for the profit enterprises, and FP is for the profit enterprises. NPO can be any society registered under the Societies Act or under the relevant statute. NPO can be a Section 8 company, or NPO can be trust registered under the Indian Trust Act. So these are the 4 entities they have mentioned under the NPO. 5th, any other specified, always there is the right. For the profit enterprise is already a listed company or any company which is for the profit but want to have a social impact also. That is the for the profit enterprise. NPO has to register on the social stock exchange, but for the profit enterprise, no registration is required. They can directly go and list their securities on the social stock exchange. Whereas NPO has to register it on the social stock exchange. It is not necessary that they will list or not. They have an option whether they have to list on their securities on the social stock exchange, or they can remain only registered also. Funding option with the NPO is that they can issue 0 coupon, 0 principal instruments, social impact fund, mutual funds, and equity. whereas FPE can have the equity, debt, and social impact funds. These can be issued by the social enterprises. Disclosure requirements. So I've bifurcated into 6 chapters. As I mentioned earlier, also that there are different regulations, mainly 2 regulations, ICDR and LODR. But in between these two, mainly LODR has introduced chapter 9A, which has the obligations on the social enterprises to disclose the various informations. ICDR has only one regulation. When an NPO has to want to raise the fund to zero coupon, zero principal bond, at that time, what are the disclosure requirements? Those are mentioned in the SEBI ICDR guidelines. And that is regulation 292K1. Why I am repeating the numbers in MCQ, they can mention that where are the disclosure requirements mentioned for the draft fundraising document by the NPO. So DFRD or FFRD are to be issued by the NPO for raising the funds through ZCZP. And the disclosure requirements are mentioned under regulation 292K1. Then LODR regulation will come where 91B to 91F give the different disclosure requirements. So 91 talks about the disclosure requirements for the profit enterprises who are the social want to have the social impact or to be the social enterprise. For this, primacy of social intent is required. So 91B talks about that. 91C is the annual disclosure by all the NPOs, whether they are registered or listed. So for listing of the NPO, registration is required. So all the registered NPOs with the social stock exchange have to make the annual disclosure, and guidance note has been given in the annexer 1. So this is again an MCQ may come, that annual disclosure of social guidance note is annexer 1 or annexer 2 for the all the NPOs. In SSC framework, there are 2 guidance note given as annexers. One guidance note is for the NPOs who are registered and have to make the annual disclosure, and second guidance note on the annual impact report for all the social enterprises who are registered or who have raised the funds. So difference between annexer 1 and annexer 2 is that annexer 1 is applicable to NPOs, annexer 2 is applicable to all the social enterprises. Everyone has to give the annual impact report. Only the social enterprises who are listed on the social stock exchange has to give the information about the material event or material information impacting their program or social intervention, and that is governed by regulation 91D. All the listed NPOs have to declare their statement of utilization of funds on social stock exchange under regulation 91F. So in this table, I try to summarize the applicability, who has to comply on, and what is the requirement, where you can find the material, and which regulation govern that disclosure requirements. Coming to the disclosure requirement by NPO raising funds through zero coupon, zero principal instruments. So in social stock exchange, we have to issue social units. So something is not written in the PPT. So just mark those things in your PPT. You can write down in the hand notes, because the social unit MCQ may come that social enterprises will issue the shares, or whether they will issue the debentures, or they will issue the social units, and they are getting the social return, not the monetary return. Any investor will get only the social returns. They are not getting any monetary return. The investors are not getting any monetary return from the social stock exchange. The SEBI ICDR regulations, which regulations talk about the disclosure requirement of the NPOs raising the funds, whether it's the ICDR, LODR, or AIF regulation, that MCQ again come. Regulation number they can ask, but it specifies whether it specifies the all the initial disclosures or minimum initial disclosures. So each line, each word you have to highlight. So I kept only those statements here which can frame the MCQs, and from one line we can make 5, 6, 7, now n numbers of MCQs. So minimum initial disclosure requirement is given under the ICDR regulations for NPOs who are raising funds through ZCZP, where the disclosure requirements to be made disclosures to be made in their DFRD and FFRD. DFRD is draft fundraising document. FFRD is the final fundraising document. Final fundraising document is to be given prior to the issue of the fund. Prior to making the issue, we have to give the final fundraising document to the stock exchange. So prior to the issue can be a MCQ. Now, who has to specify these disclosures have to be made in the draft fundraising document and the final fundraising document. SEBI has to specify the minimum initial disclosure requirements. So who has to specify? SEBI has to specify, but social stock exchange can give the additional details also. Draft fundraising document to be published on the social stock exchange, what are the required, and NPO website also for 21 days for the public comments. So 21 days, for how many days it should be on the NPO and SSC website, and for what purpose it should be there. That can be the MCQ. SSC to provide observation in 30 days of filing of DFRD or receipt of clarification. So SSC can ask the clarification on the DFRD and provide their observations, if any. FFRD to be filed with the exchange prior to opening of the issue. So final document has to be submitted to the exchange prior to the opening of issue. SSC to mandate the structure of DFRD, FFRD under the guidance of SSC Governing Council. This is the important MCQ where they will give the SSC under the guidance of whom they have to mandate the structure of DFRD and FFRD. So they may ask SSC to mandate the structure of DFRD under the guidance of SEBI or under the guidance of the Niti Aayog or SCG. Normally we make this mistake to put it under, because SEBI is the higher authority. So we will use the SEBI or Niti Aayog instead of SGC. Disclosure requirement in DFRD to be hosted on the website of SSC. So whatsoever disclosure requirement is there, that should be on the website of the respective social stock exchange, because minimum initial disclosure requirements are given in the SEBI regulations. But if any additional requirement is given by the social stock exchange, that should be hosted on the website so that everyone is aware of the disclosure requirements. And minimum disclosure requirement lies with the social stock exchange, not with the social enterprise. So that is again a question: who is responsible for the minimum disclosure, ensuring it that minimum disclosure has been made. So this is the social stock exchange who has to ensure that all the requirements of the SEBI guidelines and additional requirement of the SSC has been fulfilled with. So minimum disclosure, what does this include? So initial minimum disclosure requirement and given by the SEBI, and it includes the vision, target statement, strategy, governance, management, operations, finance, compliance, credibility, social impact, and risk. These 10 areas one has to give in their draft fundraising document or final fundraising document. They have to give in this. And what is to be given? It has been given in the which annexer. So a brief has been given in the regulations, 1 line or 2 line. Detail, please write in the chat box so that it can be, we have just discussed in which annexers of the SSC framework this annual disclosure guidance note has been given. We just covered in the previous slides. This will also show how much attentive we are.
Sir, repeat kariye, kya question kya sir abhi?
Which annexer of the SSC framework?
Annexer 1.
Yeah, annexer 1 is the one which gives the guidance note on the minimum disclosure of the ZC-ZP. No, it's wrong. They have given the annual disclosure. It's not the minimum disclosure. So there are 2 disclosures, Amitji. Only 2 guidance note. One is on the annual impact report. Second is on the annual disclosure. So minimum disclosure is not where in the annexer 1 nor in annexer 2. Am I right?
Right, sir. Right.
Correct, sir. Correct.
Yeah. So please be attentive in the class So what are the annexures given? So minimum disclosures are given the ZCZP regulation 292K1. So we can give the questions. Please be attentive in the class. You have to be so that it will be fruitful. Activities because there will be confusion. That's why I am bringing these things. In the exam, only these questions will come, whether in none of the above, annexure 1, annexure 2, or in ICDR regulation, where it is given. So what is the vision document? In the vision document or vision para, we have to mention activities, programs, and social interventions carried out by the social enterprise, and that should be in line with the objects mentioned in the constitution. So to raise a fund, an NPO has to register. To register, there should be a constitution. In the constitution, the object should be one of the 16 mentioned by the Niti Aayog. So these 16 social development goals, one should be the objective. And in the vision para of the DFRD, they have to mention and their activities, program, and social intervention, what they are carrying out. And this should be one of the in line with the objects of the constitution. Target statement, that is the second para or second point that need to be included in the DFRD. There you have to need to include the reach and inclusion. Right. In the impact report, we read the three things: reach, approach, and inclusion. And in this target statement, they have to give only two: reach and inclusion, not the approach. So this can be an MCQ in the target statement, what to include. So they can mention reach, approach, inclusion, reach, inclusion, only reach, only inclusion. So this is how the MCQ can be framed on point B. And one more interesting, the questions are coming like this: target statement to include A, reach and inclusion, reach, inclusion. So they give all the three options or four options in the question itself, and then mention only A, only B, only C, A, B, and C. So they can confuse like this also. While formulating strategies, coming to point C, while formulating strategies for vision accomplishment, capabilities and learnings from challenges should be taken into account. So in the strategy section, we have to mention about the capabilities and the challenges what can come in. So that should be in the strategy para. What are our capabilities and how we are going to overcome the challenges? What are the learning from the challenges? That should be given in the strategy para. Another important MCQ that can come in the DFRD, draft fundraising document, to include the details of governing body. That is under the governance it will come. So whosoever is the governing body, the details have to come, the composition of governing body to come, and date of board meeting to come. So these three requirements are there. So we can mention all the three requirements, underline these, but date why I put it, they can put a date and place also of the board meeting. So place is not required to be given, only date is required to be given. So where confusion can come, I have highlighted those things. Now detail of key management personnel or key executives to be given. Now who are the key executives? They have defined also that in charge of the program, fundraising, in charge of the fundraising, in charge of the marketing, communication, HR, finance. These are coming under the management section. So we have to disclose the who is the overall in charge of the program. Then we need the funds. Then we need to market. Then we need to communicate. We need the people. We need the finance department. Roles and responsibilities should be clearly defined of each of the staff, and there should be a performance appraisal process on annual basis. So it should be defined in the DFRD. So they can ask in the DFRD, they can give the 3 statements or 4 statements, and this seems why the DFRD is required the performance appraisal process, and we will take odd even out of this. So this can be a confusing. The performance appraisal process is the part of the DFRD document. You have to mention about the process. Then whether a virtual NPO can raise the funds. So no, they have their physical existence. There should be a physical address, and one person can visit that. A virtual organization or NPO cannot raise the funds through ZCZP. So these are about the operations. This comes under the operations segment. Continuing to the finance, this is again a good MCQ that you have to give the last 3 financial years, and this should be prepared in line with the guidelines issued by ICI for the NPOs. So who has issued, or the financial statements of the NPOs are issued in which under which guidelines? Issued by ICI, issued by SSC, issued by SEBI. So guidelines, they have to prepare their financials as guidelines issued by the ICI for NPOs. And they have to give the 3 years audited accounts. And there should not be any material disqualification or irregularities. If there are material disqualification or irregularities, then obviously they are not able to raise the funds, or they have to disclose it in the DFRD. Under credibility section, so there can be mentioned in the credibility which one are the documents relating to credibility. So these are the documents relating to credibility, and these are given not in any book, these are given in the regulation itself, that NPO has to submit or disclose the registration certificate, their trust deed, MOA, AOA in case of Section 8 companies, their address proof, their valid IT PAN card, their certificate of registration under Section 12A, AA or AB, FCR certificate and returns if any applicable, and remuneration of the governing members. So this is the old one, which we anything else. So they will give you that the credibility will give the prestigious award, number 1. Number 2, remuneration of governing member. Number 3, ATG certificate or 12A certificate, and number 4, registration certificate. So we will confuse that what the remuneration to be done. Prestigious award obviously has the credibility, related to credibility. But if we have read this line, we can easily say remuneration is the part, prestigious award is not the part of the credibility as per the defined regulations. So I'm giving you the options where the MCQ will puzzle, how the MCQ will puzzle also with each line. Then social impact. So second last para, we have to give the social impact. So NPO who has conducted their past programs, they can give mentioned the social impact of the last, or can give the social impact of scorecard also, so that it will give the reliability and confidence to the investors. And what are the risks they foresee? So risk to execute the work, as well as if there are any unattended consequences, the side effects of my program which may come in, and if I can foresee, then I have to disclose those also in my DFRD. And also I have to give the mitigation plan. So not only I have to disclose the risk, I have to give the mitigation plan also in this minimum disclosure requirement. SSC framework didn't talk about this 91B. So the circular on the SSC framework issued by the SEBI, they have not mentioned about this 91B. This is in the LODR regulations. So I don't know whether an MCQ can frame out that circular as on the SSC framework issued by SEBI on 15 September talks about this 91B or not. But this is an observation that SSC framework talks about all the ones except for this. But 91B talks about the for the profit social enterprise. So this regulation is for the profit social enterprise, and they have to comply with the disclosure requirements issued by their stock exchange, the main board stock exchange. And in addition to that, they have to disclose all the relevant informations prescribed by the social stock exchange. So they have to merge the disclosure requirement with their normal reporting procedures, the for the profit enterprises. So 91C is applicable on whom? All NPOs, whether listed or registered. So all the NPOs who are listed, they are registered. So all NPOs who are registered with the SSC, whether listed or not, have to make the annual disclosure. And when the annual disclosure is to be made within 60 days from the end of financial year. So annual disclosure requirement is to be made by all the NPOs registered with the SSE, Social Stock Exchange, and this is to be made within 60 days from the end of the financial year. And normally financial year in India is from 1st April to 31st March. So by 31st May, they have to disclose. SSE may specify additional requirement. So this is the clear in all the regulations. Initial requirements are given by the SEBI and additional requirements can be disclosed by the Social Stock Exchange. They can always be free to have the additional requirements. Annexure 1 of SEBI circular on framework of SSC provides the guidance note. And this guidance note talk about three aspects. One, general aspects, second, governance aspects, and third, financial aspects. So in the governance sections, where we have also discussed the governance sections, or governance para, disclosure on the governance para we just discussed, right? In which regulation? Whether it is the ICDR or LODR?
ICDR.
Yeah. So in the ICDR, we have mentioned about the, while issuing the ZP, in the DFRD, there is a para for the
LODR,
governance.
sir. LODR.
In LODR, we have discussed.
LODR में तो डिस्कस किया कि इसका डिस्क्लोजर रिक्वायरमेंट जनरल और गवर्नेंस के कहाँ होंगे सर?
नहीं, जनरल गवर्नेंस के, this is in the LODR, but
Yes.
we just discussed in the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes before, we have discussed the governance para to be incorporated in one more regulation. That is the ICDR regulation, where the NPO who is raising the ZCGP has to give a para on the governance, detail of the governing body, composition of the governing body, and date of the board meeting. These are the three governance parameters to be incorporated under the ICDR guidelines, while by the NPO
Of
want
in
to raise
the
the
offer
funds,
document, na? You are saying in the offer
document. Right.
These are differentiators, na? Differentiators.
Differentiators, right?
Yes. Okay.
We have to give these three components of the governance in the offer document: details of the governing body, date of the board meeting, composition of the governing body. But in this annual disclosure, we have to disclose some more items in the governance. So this is the difference coming out. So in the MCQ, we should not confuse. In the governance para of the ICDR regulation, only three requirements are there. In the governance aspect of LODR regulations, there are much more items to be come in, which have to be disclosed annually by the NPO, whether registered or listed. So what comes under the general disclosure? So each line can frame an MCQ: registered, legal, and popular name. So they have to give their registered name or legal name and the popular name. So if an organization is known by any other name also, which is popular among the stakeholders, then they have to disclose in the annually. They have to disclose in the general disclosure aspects. Location of the headquarters. So they have to mention their location of the headquarters. And what is the headquarter? Headquarter is the registered office. And if it is controlled through some administrative office, not the registered office, is different, where the main controlling authorities are keeping, then we have to give the both the names or location of the headquarters in the annual disclosure. Location of significant operations we have to give. Now, what are the significant operations? That significant operations has to be defined under the fundraising document. So we have to take that significant word from that. Or from the constitution also we can take that. If that FRFD is not there, only NPOs is registered. But if MCQ comes in the regulation, they have mentioned that significant has to be taken from the FRFD only. Vision, mission, and purpose. This is other MCQ that may come in. That in the general aspect, what is to be taken in. So when we are going for the offer document, let us call that offer document DFRD. draft fundraising document. Let us name that offer document. In the offer document, we have to give the vision, we have to give the target statement, we have to give the strategy. In the general aspect, we have to give the vision, mission, and purpose. And all three are not necessary here. If any organization have only 2 or 1 or 3, then they have to disclose these 3. So we confuse with the vision, target statement, and strategy to be disclosed under the offer document. Vision, mission, and purpose to be disclosed under the general disclosure aspect of the annual disclosure requirement by the NPOs. Vision, where organization is headed and where my organization is going, or where I want my organization to be, which social impact to be there, and what I am going to achieve. That is the vision of my organization. How my organization is working in the context of the purpose or the social impact, and the purpose why the organization is existing. So this is to be given annually, disclosed annually. Then organizational goals is also activities, product, and services. This is also part of the general disclosure. Outreach of the organization is part of the general disclosure. So they can give you some options and mention which one are the part of general disclosures. Type and number of direct, indirect institutional beneficiaries. So they can give this direct or indirect also in the MCQ. Reached across different programs and geographies. Scale of operations. This is the most important. Please highlight this. This is again because repeated. So many things are repeated in different regulations, and they put a difference of 1 or 2 words. So scale of operations, annual disclosure, national, state, or district level. So this can be disclosed either national or state or district level, not at the block level. So 3 options they have given. Looking at the size and interest of the stakeholders of the particular organization, either they can disclose at the district level what is the social impact they are going to make, what is the scale of operations at the level of state or at the level of national level. They have to give their net turnover, their annual spend, and annual budget they have spent in last 3 years. So general disclosure has to get the information of last 3 years. Number of beneficiaries, number of locations of operation, number of employees. So they have to give the number of employees, whether permanent, temporary, or on contract basis. These 3 they can give in the MCQ again. Number of volunteers, nature and scale of activities they have to give. Nature and scale of activities undertaken by the volunteers. They have to give top 5 donor or investor by budget. So this is again a question that how many number of donors or investors have to be disclosed in the annual disclosure made by the NPOs. 5, 10, 7, 6. So they have to give the top 5 by budget. Then top 5 activities. So they have to mention top 5 activities or social intervention or programs by budget they have to disclose in the annual disclosure. Now these are about the general disclosures. So major thing is that quickly I repeat it. So legal name, registered name, or popular name. These are the 3 names they have to disclose it. They need not to disclose their nickname. Then location of the headquarters, registered office or administrative office. They have to give from where it is controlled. Significant operations locations they have to give. Vision, mission, and purpose is to be given. Outreach of the organization includes the type and number of the direct, indirect, and institutional beneficiaries. These are the 3 outreach they have to give in their annual disclosure. Then they have to give net turnover, annual spend, and annual budget of the last 3 years. They have to disclose their scale of operation at national, state, and district level. Number of beneficiaries to be given. Number of locations of operation, which will show the scale of operations, how many employees they have, whether it is permanent, contract, or temporary, how many volunteers they have, what are the activities taken care by the volunteers. They have to give in their scale of operations. They have to give top 5 donor, investor, and activities. Budget wise, they have to disclose in the annual disclosure document. These are the general aspects. Then governance disclosure. So there are only 3 governance disclosure under the offer document. Now they have to give much more disclosures in the annual disclosure requirements. One, nature of the ownership, whether it is the private or government owned organization, what is the legal form of the entity, whether it is the Section 8 company or a trust or society registered under which act. Then what is the structure of the governance, what is the governance body composition, what is the committee, what are the subcommittees under the governing. So all the governing structure of the organization, what is the hierarchy, that is to be need to be disclosed annually. Then management committee structure, what is the charter of the organization, what are the mandates, how the membership to be there, what is the policies, what are the inter controls to be implemented. These are all the part of the governance structure, and these all are mentioned under Annexure 1 of the guidance note of the circular issued by SEBI on framework of the social stock exchange. Name of the members of governing bodies required to be disclosed. Their competence is required to be disclosed, and name of the senior decision maker, चौधरी का नाम भी देना जरूरी है एनपीओ के एनुअल डिस्क्लोजर डॉक्यूमेंट. Key executive names to be given with their responsibilities, who are responsible for which areas. Key executive we have already discussed, given in the ICDR regulations, that who is the in charge of the program, in charge of the HR, finance, fundraising, marketing, communication. Number of meetings of governance body, other committee, process of the attendance, and the performance review, that also to be given under this annual disclosure. What is the organizational level risk and their mitigation plan? This also need to be given under the annual disclosure. This is the important MCQ question, whether related party transactions are mandatory to be given in the annual disclosure or not. So they have given the 3-4 items, and related party seems that why it is required to be given, but in the annual disclosure we have to give the related party transactions. Mechanism for advice and concerns about ethics, along with conflict of interest and communication of other critical concern, that also need to be disclosed in the annual disclosure report. Now remuneration policy. So remuneration to be disclosed in the offer document, and remuneration policy to be disclosed in the annual disclosure document. And this remuneration policy includes the fixed pay, variable pay, and PLI, clawback, and termination benefit. So these 5 items are included in the remuneration policy. Reimbursement are not included in the remuneration policy. So one option they can give the reimbursement. So one option they can give the reimbursement also, which is the odd even out in the MCQ. Stakeholder grievance. So they can give the number, what are the number of the stakeholder grievance we have to give, how much is the sold, and what is the process. So these 3, you see, most of the things contain 3. अब जहाँ पे भी 3 options है, अब मानिए वहाँ पे MCQ आ जाएगा, because they will give option A, B, C or A, B, C, A, B, C, and they will give one more and select the odd even out. So they can give here name of the chief grievance officer to be given or not, and chief grievance officer is also not the key executive name with the responsibility in the LOD ICDR guideline, right? So they can give the 4th option, and the odd even out is 4th option, not the process. Compliance management process, that is statement from the senior decision maker to be given in the annual disclosure, that what is our compliance management process and RPO has complied with everything. Organization register certificate and other licenses and certifications. So these are also to be disclosed as a part of governance disclosure. 12A, 80G, FCRA, GST, etc. So where we have read this also, the governance disclosure, we have read where this 80G, under which heading we have read this of ICDR. In ICDR, while raising the offer document,
Credibility.
Yes, in the credibility document, these are the credibility documents, and here we have to give in the governance disclosure aspect. in the LODR guideline by NPO, annual disclosure. Then third one is the financial disclosure. So in the financial aspect, there we have to give the 3-year financials prepared in guideline with the ICI. Here we have to give the balance sheet, income statement, cash statement, program wise fund utilization certificate. These are the 7 documents we have to give in the annual disclosure requirements, which are listed here. First 3 are easy to remember. Balance 4 we have to repeat because they may ask the questions on the last 4 items. They can give the profit and loss statement, whether they can give balance sheet, profit and loss statement, cash statement, and they can mention about the percentage of organizational budget this issue represents. So there are 3 types of disclosures in the annual disclosure, 3 aspects. One is the general disclosure aspect, second is the governance disclosure aspect, third is the financial disclosure aspect. In the general disclosure aspects, we have to go by registered popular name, location of the headquarter, location of the significant operations, vision, mission, purpose, the goals, outreach of the organization, scale of operations, detail of top 5 donor investors and the activities. In the governance disclosure, we have to go by the nature of the ownership, legal form of the entity, the governance structure, name of the members of the governing body, their competence, name of the executive members, grievance process, related party transactions, number of meetings, organizational level risk and their mitigation plan, remuneration policy, stakeholder grievance, number of received of the grievance, solutions and process, compliance management process, and registration certificates. In the financials, this can also come. ICAI is bring the uniform accounting. Currently, what is happening, the NPOs who are under the Societies or Trust Act, they have the different reporting frameworks or different accounting policies. So while when they are registered on the SSE or Social Stock Exchange, then ICI is under the process of issuing the uniform accounting policies for all the NPOs, whether they are a trust or social society or a Section 8 company. Can you move ahead for the next?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then 91D. So this is the regulation applicable on all listed entities, right? And this is also a LODR regulation which specify the disclosure requirement of the policy of determination and materiality. So only the listed social enterprises have to apply for this regulation, not the registered NPO. If a NPO is registered with the Social Stock Exchange, but they have not raised the fund or they are not listed on the Social Stock Exchange, right? So they are not required to be disclosed this requirement. That is the one. So disclosure requirement is only with the listed social enterprises. Now, who has to every social enterprise has to make a policy of the determination of materiality. What is the materiality for them as per their object, as per their intervention? They have to make a policy of the materiality, determination of materiality, and this is to be approved by whom? By the board or management of the listed social enterprise, not the social exchange. So this is a question may come, who has to approve the policy? Policy to be approved by the board or management of the social enterprise, and board has to authorize the key management personnel who has to ensure the materiality of the determination as well as their disclosure to the stock exchange. So to whom disclosure to be made? Disclosure to be made to the exchange. So I'm write the word exchange. Exchange means Social Stock Exchange or the stock exchange, both are there. For the profit organizations, they have to report to their respective main board stock exchange as per 91B. So they have to disclose it. And for the not for the profit organization, they have to mention to social stock exchange. Contact details of such KMP also to be disclosed to the exchange. And when I'm talking about exchange, again, I'm repeating, it is the social stock exchange as well as the stock exchange, both. An event, as the case may be. Any event having material impact on the plan. So whatsoever, which is the event, which is the material impact. So they can give you the word significant impact, material impact, or they can give two more words. So this is the material impact on the planned achievement. So please underline these words, which are of the key and make part of your MCQ. Of output and outcome both, not one. Right. So in the first chapter or second chapter, we know the difference between the output and outcome. This is also a good MCQ which will come normally. They will give you the instance and ask this is the output or outcome. The information to be given as soon as possible, not later than 7 days. So material information to be given to the exchange as soon as possible, but within 7 calendar days, not the working days. Including the steps to address the same. So what are the steps taken by the organization for that material event? And regular update. So no timeline has been given, but regular update to be given till the time event remains material. So by till when it is required to be given, till the time events remain material. Queries to be answered. If any specific queries to be asked by the social stock exchange or the exchange, then these to be answered by this KMP or the NPO within the as soon as possible. Exchange to disseminate the information and clarification. So after informing the exchange, if exchange has any query, they can give that, but they have to also publicize that information and any clarification asked for as reasonably practicable. Social enterprise may suo moto confirm or deny. Even social stock exchange doesn't ask anything, but if any event is reported on the exchange, then social exchange can suo moto confirm or deny that event. Such event should also be disclosed on the website of the social enterprise. So not only on the social stock exchange, they have to inform it on their website also. 91D clear, they have to be disclosed by all listed social enterprises. They have to be disclosed at the social stock exchange or the stock exchange as the case may be. These are governed by regulation 91D of the SEBI LODR regulations 2014. SEBI LODR regulations are amended on 25th July 2022. This circular on the SSC framework, which are mainly contains the disclosure requirements, is issued on 15th September 2022. The requirement of disclosing is within 7 days. Any material impact, any event which is having the material impact need to be disclosed. Stock exchange can suo moto confirm or deny any reported event, and they have to disclose it on their website also. Can you move ahead? For
Yes,
the
sir.
next?
Ji.
Yeah.
Sir, one question, sir.
Yes.
Anywhere in this regulations, what is this materiality defined, sir? Because they have authorized key managerial persons for determination. Is there any rule showing what is the materiality?
So they have said that any event, so determination of materiality, there is a policy document to be framed and it should be approved. This is the part of the annual disclosure part also, where they are mentioning about this document which we are answering, that they have to mention in the charter, they have to mention the policies, they have to mention the internal controls in the governance structure. So this is to be framed by social enterprise. So looking at the outcome or social development goal they have choose, what is the social impact? So any event which is having a material impact on their achievement, planned achievement, that is the policy they have to mention in the policy document. Any event which can have a material impact their achievement on the output or outcome.
Got it, sir. Got it. Okay.
And they have to disclose it within 7 days, as soon as possible, but maximum 7 days are there. They have to report to the social stock exchange.
they have to frame a policy. Na, it should be according to their policy. In advance they have framed in this regard. Matlab,
Yes,
materiality
yes.
is a subjective term. Na, it cannot be standardized.
Yes, yes, yes. Right, right, Amit. Submission of AIR by all FCs registered, listed, or social impact. So regulation 91E. So we have covered regulation 91B, C, D. Now regulation 91E. If you see chapter 9A of the SEBI LOD regulations, which has been inserted via amendment on 25th July 2022, this has includes almost all the disclosure requirements, right? And this has to be given by all the social enterprises, whether they are listed or not, but any social enterprise which is registered. So it means this is applicable on an NPO registered with the social stock exchange, NPO listed with the social stock exchange, for the profit enterprise listed on the stock exchange. And time frame is 90 days. So this annual impact report, AIR is not All India Radio, it is the annual impact report. Annual impact report is to be submitted with the social stock exchange or the respective stock exchange within 90 days from the end of the financial year. And as usual, the exchange, when I'm using the word exchange, it is the social stock exchange or the stock exchange where FP is listed, they can decide the additional parameters. So initial parameters are given by SEBI, additional parameters are given by the stock exchange. Annual impact report to be audited by a social audit firm. So who has to audit the social impact annual impact report? The social audit firm who has employed the social auditor. And then again questions may come where social audit firm option is not at all given. They are given the financial auditor, cost auditor, social auditor, any auditor. So then we have to mention about the social auditor. But if they are given in MCQ social audit firm and social auditor as two separate options, then we have to choose the social audit firm as the MCQ. Audit report to be disclosed with the annual impact report. So audit report has to be disclosed on the stock exchange with the annual impact report. Both quantitative and qualitative impact to be captured. So I have captured here only the keywords. In the regulations, there can be big para or big line on this, but I have compiled this from the perspective of the MCQ examinations. And when you read the bare LODR, please highlight the lines or words, keywords, which have highlighted in the red and underlined in this PPT. AIR must cover NPOs significant activities, intervention, programs, or projects. So annual impact report should cover all the activities, significant activities during the year and the methodology of determination of significance. So how they have been significance has been determined. That is also a materiality or a subjective thing. So that also to be explained whether they have picked up from their FFRD fundraising document, and if it is not only a registered, then they have to give the methodology. Any activity which is under the FRFD, which as they have given disclosed in their FRFD, that is a significant activity. So there is no doubt. So that by default will become a significant activity if any activity is disclosed in their fundraising document. For a social impact fund. So now this requirement, who is a social enterprise having a pool of the funds, so they have to disclose their all investee and organization. So they have to give the all. This all word is there. Why this all is signified? Because in 91C they are mentioning on the top 5. In the general aspects, they are mentioning about the top 5 donor, investor, and top 5 activities. Here for the social impact fund, they are mentioning they have to give the disclosure of the all investee and guarantee organizations जहाँ पे उन्होंने fund deploy किया है. Where social impact fund has deployed their funds, they have to give the all the investees name. Then AIR to include, but the annual impact report is, there are 3 parts of the annual impact report, like there are 3 parts of the annual disclosure: governance, financials, and the general aspect. Now there are three parts: strategic intent planning, approach, and impact scorecard. So these are the three parts of the annual impact report. So they can ask also again. So there are at lot of the places they have given 3 points. So these 3 points are more dangerous for the MCQ point of view, because you have to remember all the three to make the odd out of even. Figure out that. So this annexure 2 of the circular issued by SEBI on the framework of social stock exchange has given the guidance note on the contents of the annual impact report. And we have mentioned in the previous slide, there are three parts. First part is strategic intent and planning. So in this, they have to explain the problem statement, what they are going to affect, what are the challenges in the society, what are the causes, what are the consequences of the problem statement, what I am going to address. Then what is the plan to meet out this challenge? Which portion of target group we are experiencing to change? Then I have to give the target statement. Again, here comes the target statement. Target statement is also there in the DFRD. So target statement include 3 points here. Again, 3: income, geography, and thematic issue. Wherever 3 comes, please mention, remember those things, underline those things. Target statements includes 3. AIR includes 3 contents, right? Annual disclosure includes 3: financial, journal, and governance. So these 3 and 4th will be your answer. Or these 3 can mix up: A, B, only A, B, only A, B, C, or only A, only B. So they are giving permutation and combinations by giving these all the 3 in the option itself. So they will give when the target statement, and this is questions, at least 20-25 questions come like this, that in the target statement of the annual impact report, a social enterprises has to disclose the income, A, B, geographical, 3, thematic issue, and then they will give you the option: only A, only B, A, B, C, A, and B. And now you have to remember which one, or whether all the 3 are there or whether not. And they can give a 4th one also in the question itself. Then what are the target statement is specific, geographic. So in the thematic issue, there are again 3: gender, caste, community. So wherever 3 comes in, please highlight those 3 items. These are the MCQs which will be drafted. That places the target statement at a disadvantage that has the economic and non-economic consequences, where the target statement is specific geographic region in its entirety state. So thematic issues could be one or more of the following. Now they can ask this also, where the target statement is this is the question statement, and these are the options: conservation of resources, generation via renewable resources, reduction in waste, conservation, reduction in toxic substances. They can give any of these in the options. Then outcome, target statement, then outcome, positive or unintended negative outcome. This also need to be the part of the annual report. Theory of change, logical model framework for the solution program should be there as a part of outcome. So there are the 4 major items in the strategic intent and planning. One is the explain the problem statement, which organization is going to address, then how they are going to plan to attain this challenge, and what is the target statement of the organization, of the enterprise. And in this, they have to give the income, that they have to increase the income, socio-demographic, behavioral characteristics. They can give the geography, that they are targeting the urban, rural area, or a particular density, population density. Based on that, they have to give. Then thematic issue, whether gender-based, caste-based, community-based, which they are targeting out. Then they have to give whether they are reducing the waste or whether they are conserving the renewable resources in a particular geography. Then they have to give those on the target statement in the annual impact report. Then approach. What is the approach they have adopted? So baseline study. So in the approach, they have to give the baseline study, that is the starting point of the activity. So where they are today in the annual report, where they are at the beginning of the year, that need to be given. So this is the starting point of the activity so that they can measure the depth. So baseline study is to be given in the annual impact report, which is starting point, and this is required to measure the depth of the challenge they have undertaken, or what is the spread of the challenge they have undertaken. That is the baseline study. And in absence of the baseline study, detailed situational analysis to be done. So this is the question may come out, that what is to be done in case of baseline study is not given. Then in the impact report, they have to make the detailed situational analysis. Past performance trend to be given for the ongoing activity. If there is any ongoing activity by the organization for that year, then we have to give a past performance trend of that activity also. But if there is a proposed activity, then in the annual impact report, we have to give the experience of the similar program in a similar situation. So they can ask, what about the ongoing activity, what we have to give, for the proposed activity, what we have to give, or they can ask also for the experience when in the annual impact report, the experience of similar program in similar situation is to be given for an ongoing activity, for a proposed activity, for both, for none of the above. Detailed implementation plan. So detailed implementation plan, again the terminology they can ask in the MCQ. So detailed situation analysis, detailed implementation plan is the part of the annual impact report. And this is very important. 1 mark questions definitely come. Please highlight this. Normally it should come. These are the, where I'm saying this may be the part of my exam. Right. So from that para, I'm highlighting specially where I'm saying, please note these paras. Those are the part or one of the MCQ come in the exam out of that. So in detailed implementation plan, where there is a time bound support is having, then exit strategy to be explained. And if it is a perennial support, then sustainability of the project to be explained in the annual impact report. And this comes under the detailed implementation plan. Now, possible deviations from the implementation to be mentioned: alignment of activities as per the SDGs national and state priority to be mentioned in the annual report. List of stakeholders whose feedback is taken, that also you have to give in the annual impact report. And risk faced in the last year, that also be disclosed under the approach segment of the annual impact report. Clear?
सर क्लियर तो है, बट डिफिकल्ट लग रहा है ये, तो इतना याद कैसे होगा सर? अगर वहां पे तो लॉजिकली अगर हम लोग एलिमिनेट नहीं कर पाए तो इट विल बी डिफिकल्ट टू क्रैक.
You just have to give a plain reading for 4-6 hours, then you have to discuss in the groups. कि जहां पे जो चीजें अभी आप पढ़े, after this lecture if you are going to read that book, automatically it will register in your mind and you will highlight those. This is the point come in. Exit strategy comes in when time bound support is there. Sustainability comes in and I also framed the MCQs, right? So just attempt those MCQs. एक बार वो MCQ कर लिया तो आपको अभी क्या होगा? What will happen that when you are reading a book, you cannot open the mind what can be the options and where you are going to confuse. Why I am coming from the background, why I am saying where we are going to confuse and why you are looking at it is very difficult. क्योंकि कुछ तो मैंने कंफ्यूज कर दिया, वहां पे ये है, यहाँ पे ये है, but these are the practical things which will come in the exam.
Yes, correct.
You have read at 3 places. You have read the target statement.
नहीं करेक्ट है सर, वो थोड़ा सा डीप रीडिंग चाहिए इसके लिए, थोड़ा सा डीप.
Yes. That you have to compare. You have to sit with the regulation, and this is only 5-page regulation, I think, so LODR, or 16-page regulation. Yeah, only 16-page SSC framework circular is there. लेकिन उसमें आप आगे पीछे देख के जैसे ही आएगा आप उसको क्लियर करते चलेंगे, that will be okay. And best part is just attempt the MCQs. In the MCQ, it will definitely give you a open mind that what is the time bound strategy. If the time bound support will come, we have to write exit strategy as an option. If perennial support is come, it is a sustainability has to come. In the approach part, it is a detailed implementation plan what is given. Detailed situation analysis to be done in absence of baseline study. Baseline study to be done in the approach of the LODR, annual impact report. So this is how we have to correlate or something have to remember. Now impact scorecard.
So regarding this baseline status,
Yeah.
this they will take from the previous year baseline from the day they started it, or where
Yeah,
they are today.
So yes, no, they have started from the beginning of the first year of the year you are reporting.
Yeah,
From
that
the
that
1st
means
April.
where they were on the first of April
Yes.
of the last year.
Yes, they
Last
have to.
financial.
Yes. And if it is not baseline study is not there, starting point of activity, then you have to make a situation analysis. If it is first year itself, you're starting the program or you're starting
Right.
the last year, then you have to make a situation analysis. This is the unemployment numbers. These are the things. Then you have to. So this is a starting point. That this much the unemployment in the rural areas, and Manrega scheme has come out with this much impact, or these are the people died because of the hunger in this area. These are the farmers are making the suicide in Maharashtra. So you have to make that situation analysis of that particular area at the district level, national level, or the state level, depending on the size of the NPO or scale of operations of the NPO.
Right.
Coming to the impact scorecard, this is the third point. Metrics. So there are the impact scorecard, there is a matrix to be there, and there are three. Again, 3 points are there: reach, depth, and inclusion. And in your case studies also, this annual impact report is there. So if you understand this annual impact report disclosures, then one case study should be there, maybe there to crack these 5. So this annual disclosure will be not only of the 10 marks, it can be of the 15 marks also. So 15-mark case study that can come from the social impact, AIR, annual impact report, and social impact fund or social audit part also. So these are the mix. So in the reach, so what do we my reach? That how much population I have reached during the reported period. So I have a target segment and how much proportion I have reached during the reported period. Then how many persons in that reported has accepted my solution. And what is the part of my planned activity or the project that has been accomplished during the period. So what is my target statement? In my target statement, how many people I have reached, how many people have accepted my, and if I have a target of reaching or accepting the solution of 100 people, whether I have achieved 50, 20 or 30, that is come under the reach. Cumulative reach till inception, not during the year, till inception, how much people I have reached there, and other suitable matrices in relation to the solutions that I need to give. So these are the first 4 which are the important from the reach perspective in the MCQ. Then second portion is depth. So remember we mentioned somewhere in the impact scorecard there is a 3 items in the target we have to give reach and inclusion, not the depth. At one statement where the target statement is there in the LODR regulations itself, 91C, we have to mention about the reach and inclusion. So here we have to, that is we have to give on the annual basis. So depth is not given, but depth is the important for the MCQ. That when you are auditing the, or when you are framing the impact scorecard, when you are preparing the impact scorecard, so you have to make the median of survey of 1% of your customers or recipients. So they have given the percentage, how much percentage to be reached, 2%, 3%, 4%, or at least 200 respondent per organization you have to reach. And then another MCQ, this is the MCQ, that while making the depth, how many options are given, has your life or quality of life changed? Because this is given in the guidance note. This is given in the guidance note that there are the 5 options you have to give in the survey. 1, very much, slightly improved. So they have given the 5 options. Number of options to be given are the 5. Number of people to be reached 1% or minimum 200. So these are the 3 MCQ which will come in the depth. Then inclusion. The third part of the impact scorecard matrix is inclusion. So there are 3 matrices: reach, depth, inclusion. In the inclusion, we have to, as social enterprise must consider itself how its approach intends to improve inclusion for its customer recipients along one or the following themes. Again, 3 themes, right? So again, 3 points come in the inclusion: net increase in the income level of the customers, diversity and inclusion. The SC exhibits how it prioritizes the inclusion of disadvantaged groups or communities and empower them in their relationships. So whether their income has been increased, farmers' income have been increased or not, their quality of life has been increased or not, and then social activity, social equity. So this exhibits that how its approach has resulted in the disadvantaged group or community experienced increased social equity. So how much social equity has been brought in or gap has been bridged out, that is also part of the inclusion. This can be done through a survey or qualitative criteria such as strategy, process, internal accountability, governance process, disadvantaged group, and this community. Then in the impact scorecard, there are the metrics. First is the metrics, right? Then metrics in terms of reach, depth, and inclusion. Now we come to second part is organization, to mention key highlight, achievement, challenges, disappointment faced during the reporting period. And third, the impact card should be validated by the stakeholder so that any NPO should not overclaim that. So I have to make the survey of 1% of 200, and then we have make a survey that whether this whatsoever impact scorecard is claimed by the NPO is validated by the beneficiary and stakeholders or not. So there should be photos to be there. This should be validated. All the claims to be validated by the social auditor. Is it clear? Annual impact report is over. Regulation 91E is about the annual impact report, which is applicable for all the social enterprises who are registered or listed. Why I'm talking about registered or listed? Because for the profit enterprises are not required to be registered. They can directly list their securities on the stock exchange, applicable segment of their stock exchange. So statement of utilization of funds, this is given only by the listed NPOs, and it is to be submitted every quarter. It is to be submitted within 45 days. Regulation 91E governs this statement of utilization of funds. One MCQ can come out of this also. If we divide the disclosure regulations into 6 parts.
So this is 91E or 91F? 91E, though we studied earlier.
Yeah, 91F, because I have not changed this. Sorry. Thank you for correction.
Solid, sir.
Yeah. So
91E, though we have already read.
Yes, 91E is the annual impact report.
Annual impact.
Yeah. So I didn't change the first line. So statement of utilization of funds by all listed NPOs. So who is required to submit it? The NPOs who is listed on the social stock exchange. It is not required to be given by the NPOs who are registered. It is to be submitted within 45 days of the end of the quarter. That means it is submitted quarterly. And regulation 91F of the SEBI LODR regulations, which are amended on 25th July 2022, has made this requirement for the listed NPOs. Now, what does this statement includes? This statement includes category-wise amount of money raised, money utilized, and the balance amount unutilized. So these 3 items they have to give on a quarterly basis to the social stock exchange. Then all the unutilized amount should be kept in a separate bank account. So they can give you the option whether the unutilized money to be kept in a separate bank account, in the same bank account, in separate bank itself, or it doesn't matter. So it should be kept in a separate bank account and it should not be commingled with other funds. And the statement required under sub-regulation 1, which is the category-wise amount of money raised, money utilized and unutilized, should be given till the time issue proceeds have been fully utilized or the purpose has been achieved. So till when this quarterly statement to be given? Till the time the amount raised, because this is the listed NPO. So listed NPO is the one who has raised the fund or who has get the fund of ZC ZP as per their draft final fundraising document. So this is all about the disclosure requirements. But in chapter 9, they have given two small other topics also from where one mark question may come, and these are very small. So how can we strategize or how can we break up between these 10 marks also? So we can go with the small disclosure regulations first. Like this is very small, statement of utilization of funds, and there will be 10 or 15 permutation combinations can come out of the MCQ, which is on the 91F. So we can just remember this, easy to remember, easy to recall, 1 mark pakka. So currently what is coming out, how we are gaining the marks or how we using the exam. So your annual impact report may say there may be 4 or 5, but definitely 1 or 2 are confusing. 1 or 2 are straightforward. But when we are going about these 10 or 15 MCQs in this regulation 91F, 1 is definitely will come. And 1 mark is definitely sure. And it can be happen that there will be 2 marks also out of this. But we should not leave these small regulations because these will conclude my marks for sure. Another small thing, books to be maintained by a stock exchange. So this is the books to be maintained. So these are the books to be maintained under which act? First MCQ. Books to be maintained by whom? Books to be maintained by under which act? So these normally we left. We don't put any attention on these. Under which rule? Rule 51, rule 15(2) is giving this, that every recognized stock exchange, there are 2 things, books and accounts to be recorded for 5 years and for a period of 2 years. For 5 years, you have to maintain Soda book, client ledger, journal, cash book, bank passbook, documents, 5-6 items. 2 years, you have to maintain only 3 items, member contract book, the duplicate copy of the contract note, and written consent of the client where contracts are entered into as principals. These are the 3 records to be maintained for 2 years. Balance records are maintained for the 5 years by the exchange. Applicable to an intermediary when they fail. So this is penalty. So penalty under the SEBI Act, this is also from the NISM material. Section 15A of the SEBI Act 1952 provides this penalty, and this penalty is applicable to the intermediary, and penalty amount is 1 lakh rupee minimum, and it can continue 1 lakh per day and maximum of 1 crore rupees. This is again MCQ can come in, only 4 or 5 MCQs are can be permutation are there, but 1 may come out of this penalty.